Welcome back to an update on the Raven 9. I've reached 600 rounds, and I intend this to be a short video, but it may go a bit longer than 10 minutes. So, first of all, 600 rounds went through almost no problems. There was one problem, and I'll get more into that later, but I want to talk about three things first. First of all, the charging handle has come in since. It simply just screws into the side of the receiver. It's textured. I have a picture up on my community post, but I put hockey tape around it because I'm obsessed with hockey tape and it works really well. But it simply just screws right into the bolt carrier group on the side and locks into place, and it works. I use this primarily in my shooting of this update because I like it better than a top charging handle, personally. However, the one thing I will say is it can slightly come loose, like it'll come loose like that, and then you just have to retighten it. So it works really well. It's just in the advancement of trying to make it easy to take apart by just making it screw off, it can come loose. It's easy to put back, but I can understand how some might not like that and might just stick with the top charging handle. The other thing is the muzzle device. Now, I'm going to play some footage here of the shooting of the gun with this compensator. It is the Strike Industries Mini King Comp 9. And you might not think that a muzzle device on the end of a 18.5-inch 9mm would do anything, but it actually does. It is actually a very noticeable difference to the recoil pattern. Now, the thing without the muzzle device was it was light recoiling, but it was kind of jumpy, and I think that's because it's a very light front end. And so you could hit targets within 25 yards very quickly in like an A zone. But if you're shooting really small plates, I think the jumpiness would cause you an extra like quarter of a second between plates. And so this compensator, as you're seeing on the screen now, top is without, bottom is with. It is more flat shooting, and you can kind of see without the comp, it's a bit jumpy. So it's totally usable without, but it is actually a nice upgrade. And I think what I think it was like $60. I actually think it's worth it. I think it looks pretty good too with this whole setup here. But yeah, it's surprisingly, it actually is worth using. Now, the other thing is the TriggerTech trigger. You can buy it straight from Lockhart with the TriggerTech trigger. I just bought from G4C and I bought it with a mil-spec trigger, but I have this TriggerTech trigger and I want to try it out. So here's some footage of where you can see my finger moving and how little it's moving. And it's very nice to shoot, but honestly, I don't know if I would actually spend on the TriggerTech trigger. I didn't have a problem with the mil-spec trigger before, and for $300, like if I'm really thinking about it, is it worth spending the $300 here? I don't know. I really don't think so. In a text conversation I had with the owner, and I'll get into why I had that conversation in the first place later. he said it would work better, like it would feel lighter with a lighter buffer system. Um, but even if it was lighter, I don't think it really changes anything. And we'll get into what happened there in a second as well. Um, Even if it was lighter, I don't think it changes anything. I don't know. It's a very personal choice, like preference wise. It's like a mechanical keyboard. Some love red switches, some love blue switches. There's no right or wrong answer. But yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Maybe that's just me. Um, I did buy was it ACG ACT trigger, which is just basically a mil spec trigger, but with slightly lighter trigger pull and a more smooth trigger pull, which is I think at 4.5 pounds. So I'm gonna put that in this gun instead. I think I'm gonna keep that in there, hopefully if I like it. Now, what you saw there with the malfunction is not the fault of the rifle in any way, shape, or form. So, I have a Glock 24 and I have 40 cal magazines. As you just saw, they fit in here no problem. That's because 40 and 9mm magazines externally are the same dimension. But and you can load, theoretically, you can load, I think it's like 13 rounds of 9mm in here. And yes, that is legal. It's on the RCMP's website. However, it's not reliable. It's probably legal because it doesn't really work. Um, in handguns, it can work, but the problem is the rounds jut so far up like this because the feed lips aren't made for it, right? And as you saw in the footage there, it completely jammed up. The round got stuck like this. So really, if you thought maybe you could get a few extra rounds capacity using 40 mags, at most you could get is actually -2. I found 8 rounds, 7, 8 rounds in here was the most I could put in here without it jamming up here. So yeah, don't expect to be able to use 40 cal Glock mags. And that leads me to the issue I had. Now, the gun comes with these magazines. They are KCI USA magazines. These are shit magazines. I think it's pretty well known that they're not very good. But take a look at the cutout for the mag catch. It is already deformed. And if you need a comparison point, it's already deformed. And I've loaded this and unloaded this into this gun like less than 50 times. And what that has done is this. I can pull out on the magazine without pressing the mag release. And not yesterday, 2 days ago, when I was doing my 600 rounds, when I got to about round 550, this mag came shooting out the bottom when the action cycled. Now, that is fairly disappointing that it comes with a pretty shit mag. But it is also worth mentioning. Now, I have P mags and I have these stock Glock mags. I mean, the 40 ones. And none of them ever came shooting out the bottom. Okay, so that's good. But it is possible to take these mags out of this magwell without pressing the mag release. But it is more difficult. So I can try, and it is quite difficult, but I don't really want to damage these magazines just in case. But it can happen, and I think this is where I need to realize when this happened, because I think from the entire time I've owned this rifle, it's always been possible for these mags to come out when the magazine catch isn't pulled. However, stock lock mags and the P mags I have are built well enough that it would never happen on normal operation. But this mag was really shit, and it completely just did it won't work anymore. Like, I can't use this magazine anymore. Um, and I think it could be attributed to the rifle. Now, I'm going to just quickly take the rifle down because I want to try and show what is going on here. I don't know how well this is going to pick up, but let's see. The mag catch, you can see it comes out just fine and it protrudes just fine. However, I think this is where the design of the rifle comes in. The mag catch could be like 0.25 millimeters longer, and I think it fixes the problem. Um, I think it's just barely not long enough, because you can see there's a tiny bit of wiggle, which is fine. But that tiny bit of wiggle here allows it to drop out when you don't want it to. And that's where the extra long mag catch can come in. So you can see to the side down. If it was just that tiny bit longer, I think it would be totally fine. But that is not what has happened. So basically, the conclusion of this is use good magazines. Don't use shit magazines. And the sad part is that the gun comes with a shit magazine. At least it only comes with one, so that's good. But yeah, don't buy KCI mags if you have this rifle. It's not worth it. Just buy P mags. They're cheaper, and they have absolutely no problems that I've had. Now, the other thing I have to mention, and you might have noticed when you were watching, is the safety selector went on a bit of a run. It came loose, the screw here came loose and started flipping all around. And I'm not chalking that up to anything. I think that's my fault. I forgot, or I not forgot, I just didn't tighten it enough when I installed the Trigger Tech trigger. And that led to, I think that's what led to a very interesting situation, in that I had a runaway for like 3 rounds on this. And I think that's because the trigger, it was loose at the back. I think that's what happened. I think it just had a runaway because of this. But I tightened it down since, and when I get the new one, I'll make sure it's really tight. The new trigger, I'll make sure it's really tight, and that won't happen. But that is also worth mentioning. Runaways are possible on this. They're possible on most guns or most blowback rifles. But yes, just in case anyone thought they weren't possible on this gun for some reason, they are. But overall, now 600 rounds into this rifle, I still think it's very enjoyable. I still think it's an excellent rifle so far. It has some quirks, but man, does it have potential. It's a great feeling gun to shoot. It's super well balanced. It is a very enjoyable rifle to shoot, and I think it looks great too, still. So, that is it for this video. I'll have a Savage 64 Precision video out later in the week, maybe Thursday-ish, for shots, and then I'll have to go back to the range and finish up my dousing round review of this and shoot a bit more of the Savage. That is it for today. Thank you very much for watching.